It's time now to turn our eye to business, and who better than Kate Moody to join us? Good evening to you.
Hi, Mark.
Starting in the US with a rather damning report about Boeing, the two deadly crashes involving its 737 MAX planes.
Yeah, an 18-month investigation by a U.S. congressional panel, Mark, says that both Boeing and U.S. government regulators were to blame for the deaths of 346 people, which led to the grounding of the MAX fleet around the world. Now, the scathing report describes the dual tragedies as the horrific culmination of failed oversight, design flaws, and a lack of transparency. Families of the victims say the report exposes what they describe as an unforgivable crime. Luke Schrago reports.
Corporate pressure, a lack of transparency, design flaws, and a lack of government oversight. All to blame for two crashes of the Boeing 737 MAX, according to a US congressional report.
Boeing, under pressure to compete with Airbus and deliver profits for Wall Street, escaped scrutiny from the FAA, withheld critical information from pilots, and ultimately put planes into service that killed 346 innocent people.
The two jets, one with Indonesia's Lion Air, the other with Ethiopian Airlines, went down within 5 months of each other in October 2018 and March the next year. The MAX was grounded worldwide shortly after. It was suspected at the time the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, MCAS, was to blame. It was meant to prevent the MAX's more powerful engines tilting the jet up by pushing the nose down. However, an 18-month investigation found the system had been little publicised in an effort to get the aircraft rushed through certification so that pilots wouldn't need extra training. The report blamed not just Boeing, but the Federal Aviation Administration too, for farming out oversight to Boeing's own employees and demanded serious reforms to the approval system. Boeing, for its part, said it had taken the recommendations on board when it came to the 737 MAX.
Once the FAA and other regulators have determined the MAX can safely return to service, it'll be one of the most thoroughly scrutinised aircraft in history, and we have full confidence in its safety.
Boeing's already settled most of the outstanding lawsuits from the Lion Air crash. However, families of those on board the Ethiopian Airlines jet are currently demanding that US lawmakers still hold Boeing and the FAA accountable.
America's central bank has kept interest rates near zero, projecting it's unlikely to change until 2023. The U.S. Federal Reserve suggested it would keep its accommodative stance and its bond buying program at a higher than usual rate of $120 billion worth per month for as long as the economy needs it. It's aiming for inflation of above 2% for some time as well. The Fed saying economic activity and employment have picked up but are still much weaker than they were at the beginning of the year, and that the future will depend almost entirely on the coronavirus. Well, earlier I spoke to Christian Lawrence, senior market strategist at Rabobank New York, and asked what tools the Fed still has at its disposal and whether that would be enough if the economic recovery stalls.
As we've learnt since really the global financial crisis back in 2009, unfortunately the Fed's measures don't tend to trickle down to Main Street. Now, this time around, they did have specific Main Street packages, but the take-up of those has been 0.2%. So essentially, the Fed's actions, they help support shareholders by helping support the equity markets, but they're not really doing much for the average person in the street, particularly those that don't have jobs at the moment. We need help from the fiscal side in order to provide some support for those.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. Wall Street gave up its earlier gains as that guidance underwhelmed investors. Just the Dow Jones closing slightly higher. Tech stocks dragged downwards, the Nasdaq ending over 1% in the red. We saw a mixed close for the major European indices earlier as well. London's FTSE 100 ended nearly half a percentage point in the red. Slight gains in Paris, Frankfurt and Milan. Shares of fashion giant Inditex, that's the parent company of Zara, jumped 8%. After it reported a return to profit following the lockdown. Moving on to some of the day's other business headlines now. The Japanese firm Bridgestone is to close a tire factory in northern France, citing overcapacity on the continent. More than 850 jobs are at risk. Unions and government officials have criticized the move as brutal. The Wall Street Journal reports the Federal Trade Commission could bring an antitrust case against Facebook by the end of this year. The report says a final decision on legal action hasn't yet been made, but the FTC has spent more than a year investigating whether Facebook used its dominant position in social media to stifle competition. And the Trump administration says it's reviewing a proposed deal between software giant Oracle and the Chinese video app TikTok. Reports suggest that the plan under discussion would see current Chinese owners ByteDance as a majority shareholder and Oracle as a minority one. A group of Republican lawmakers, however, has called on the White House to follow through with a threat to ban the app if ties to ByteDance remain. President Trump has set a deadline of this Sunday for the sale of TikTok's U.S. operations. Singapore is encouraging the public to take a holiday, but stay close to home for it. The government's handing out $100 vouchers, that's just over 60 euros, to spend in local hotels, restaurants, or attractions. It's part of the Rediscover Singapore campaign, launched in July to support the struggling tourism industry. Overall, the voucher program will cost the government around 200 million euros. Mark, this is in the same vein as the UK's Eat Out to Help Out program, which encouraged people to head back to restaurants and get a little bit of a discount for it. Staycation, really the name of the game for 2020.
Indeed. Noted. Kate, thank you very much indeed. Kate Moody with all the business there. Great to see you. Staycation. Get stuff. Get in there. Great. Time for sport. Jean-Emile Jamin is with us with stage 17 of the Tour de France now completed. He didn't do it. The cyclist did. What's the latest?
Well, Mark, it was an absolutely gargantuan effort by Colombia's Miguel Angel Lopez in the Queen stage today with the first Tour victory of his career. For a comprehensive analysis of today's race, we go to France 24's sports editor Simon Harding.
A stage and a man who will go down in the history of the Tour de France. Never before had someone attempted to climb the Col de la Loze here in Méribel, and it was Team Astana's Miguel Angel Lopez who took the glory as he beat Tadej Pogačar and Primož Roglic to the line after a superb final ride in the last 3 kilometers of this stage 17, which was really considered the Queen stage of this 107th edition of the Tour de France. 170 kilometers, 2 uncategorized climbs. First, the Col de la Madeleine, and this gargantuan effort at Col de la Loze, where pieces of road were actually added to allow the riders to climb to the summit of the mountain, with gradients in some portions of the track going as high up as 22%. In the end, Miguel Angel Lopez really registering what will be a famous victory. In the general classification, Primož Roglic continues to keep his yellow jersey. He actually made ground on second place Tadej Pogačar, moving up by 17 seconds. It's now a 50-second advantage over his compatriot. Miguel Angel Lopez is 29 seconds further afield in a day which saw other GC contenders fall behind, including Rigoberto Urán and Nairo Quintana, with Egan Bernal of Team Ineos Grenadiers, who abandoned the race at the start of the day. But all the plaudits go to these riders who performed admirably on what will go down certainly as one of the hardest stages ever in the Tour de France, before another grueling mountain stage on Thursday with 5 summits to climb, the individual time trial on Saturday, before the famous and traditional finish on the Champs-Élysées in Paris.
That's Simon Harding for France 24. We head on over to basketball now, where Denver's dynamic duo of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic led another stunning turnaround as the Nuggets advanced to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2009. Murray scored 40 points, Jokic had a triple-double by the third quarter, and Denver again overcame a double-digit deficit to shock the Los Angeles Clippers 104-89 in Game 7 on Wednesday. The Nuggets have now become the first team in NBA history to rally from a 3-1 series deficit twice in the same postseason, and adding to the history, the Nuggets are the third team in the US major pro sports to rally from a pair of 3-1 deficits in the same playoffs, joining the 1985 Kansas City Royals and 2003 Minnesota Wild. Now, the former president of the International Association of Athletics Federations, Lamine Diack, has been sentenced to 4 years in prison, 2 of which are suspended, for his role in a network of corruption devoted to hiding doping amongst Russian athletes. Peter O'Brien has more on the story.
After a sprawling investigation over the course of 5 years, the court in Paris has spoken. 87-year-old Lamine Diack, the former boss of the global athletics body IAAF, has been found guilty of corruption and breach of trust. It's 4 years in prison, 2 of which suspended. Diack's lawyers say they will appeal.
Cette décision est une décision qui est injuste, inhumaine. Elle est injuste parce qu'on voit que le tribunal a cherché à faire dans le politiquement correct, a voulu se servir de M. Diack comme étant un bouc émissaire.
The judge said that during his 16-year tenure as head of the IAAF, the Senegalese sports administrator was part of a scheme that allowed Russian athletes to pay large amounts of hush money to keep competing when they should have been suspended for doping. The court also handed a guilty verdict to Diack's son, Papa Massata Diack, who embezzled funds while he was a marketing consultant for the IAAF. He's been sentenced to 5 years prison in absentia, but he lives in Senegal, which has refused to extradite him.
Nous sommes innocents. Je suis innocent des faits et des accusations. Aucune preuve tangible et irréfutable ne peut m'être opposée.
Lamine Diack was also found guilty of accepting Russian money to help finance Macky Sall's 2012 presidential campaign in Senegal. And there's still more to investigate. Both father and son are suspected of corruption in the awarding of the 2020 Olympic Games to Tokyo and the 2016 Games to Rio de Janeiro.
And finally, we end with some dramatic football action in Ligue 1 as reigning champions Paris Saint-Germain took on Metz at the Parc des Princes in Wednesday's late game. It was one-way traffic from PSG in the first half, but despite peppering the Metz goal, the two teams went into the break scoreless. PSG's task then became even harder in the second, with defender Abdou Diallo dismissed after 2 bookable offences. Goalkeeper Alexandra Okija showed some inspired form to thwart the home side, but then pandemonium as Julian Draxler profited off a badly handled Di Maria cross in the 93rd minute, heading the ball in to hand PSG a 1-0 win and the 3 points. Now, Mark, it was a fantastic game, but judging by your tie, I think you were possibly more focused on Everton's 3-0 win against Salford in the English League Cup.
In the League Cup.
Second round.
3-0 against Salford City Lions. I mean, it's you know... The thing is, when a top team or a Premiership team plays a lower league team, you always expect them to score 8 or 9 goals. And you get no thanks for just a solid performance where you win easily and the scoreline's 3-0. So they did the job. Well done, lads. Well done. Commiserations to Salford, because, you know, some good players there too. But there you go. Everton are through to the next round. But we play Fleetwood Town. Another one. There we go. That's where fishermen's friends are made, you know, Fleetwood. I'll leave it there. Jean-Emile, thank you very much for the sport. Jean-Emile Jamin there with all the sport. Thanks to you for watching. Stay with us. More to come. Live from Paris.